Grace, and this is Joey.
That's me.
It's him. And we are some youth pastors at CR Youth, and we're so excited for tonight.
Yes, we are continuing our series called At the Movies, and we've got a real treat for tonight because we've got the one, the only, the blue-haired wonder, Jessie Lee Golnick, bringing an incredible word for us. And she's going to be looking at a movie tonight that's a real tearjerker. Isn't that right, Grace?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at the movie Clouds, and it's a really powerful movie, and we know that Jessie's message is going to be really powerful for us as well. So we just can't wait to see what God is going to do tonight.
Yeah, so right after this, we're going to jump right in the message, but maybe you're like, hey, I still want to be a part of the worship experience, so we have a Spotify playlist created just for you. If you go down to the link in the description below, click on it, it'll take you right there, and it'll be literally the songs that we're playing this week at Youth, and you can experience it at home.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And something else that we want them to be aware of is we are having a winter retreat, and it's going to be so much fun. This is going down on February 27th and 28th. It's not an overnight event. And you're probably thinking like, well, am I supposed to drive up to a camp like every day? No. We're going to the Cottage Grove campus, so it's going to be a local retreat, and it's going to be so much fun. And the cost, it's only $65.
Which is great.
Yeah, so great. And so if you're interested in being there, and we hope that you are, you can head on over to cr.life/events and register for this event. And the registration goes live at 8:30 tonight.
Yeah.
8:30 tonight. So I want you, yes, you, the one that's watching right now, to be one of the very first people that register.
Yeah, so we're super excited about that. And I know usually something that we all love about CR Youth is small groups. And maybe you're at home and you're like, I still want to be a part of small groups, though I'm not attending in person. There is a email address right here. It's popping up right here. What you can do is you can email what campus you go to, what small group you're in, and email that to this email address, and we'll make sure that next week we have you in small group, whether that's over Zoom or FaceTime. We want to make sure you're still with your friends in your small group with your leader, so make sure to email us below.
Yeah, that's right. We love you guys so much. We're so glad that you're tuning in for tonight. So let's head on over to the blue-haired wonder for this incredible message.
Well, hey, CR Youth, man, I am so excited that you are here tonight. My name is Jessie Golnick, and I'm the youth pastor over at our Egan campus, and I have something to say very quickly. It is Wednesday, my dudes. Yes, it is Wednesday, and we are in our series, At the Movies, and we're going to be talking about something incredible. But before I get to that, I got to ask you a question. Since we're talking about movies, I need to know what you think makes a movie go from good to great to incredible. I want you to think about that for a second. Is it the setting? Is it the actors or actresses? Is it the way that they've designed the sets? Is it the soundtrack? I'm not quite sure. But for me, I think what makes a movie go from good to great to incredible is the ending. I mean, take a movie like Lion King. Okay, so we have the ending here. So what happens right before we get to this moment is Simba, my homeboy right here, he has defeated his uncle, and now he's like going to take his rightful place as the king of the kingdom, and he's stepping up on this rock, and what happens, this like beautiful transition, it's like raining because it was like sad right before that, but then he defeated him, and so he's stepping up on this rock, and as he does, it goes from rain to like sun, and he's taking his rightful spot, and all of the animals are like, yeah, like they're super excited, and like the circle of life, you know that song? So like that starts playing, and then the animals are getting excited, and they're making their like animal noises. They're like screaming in their animal tongue. And then all of a sudden they're like clapping their hooves, and they're clapping their feathers. Like that right there is an incredible ending. And the thing about endings is endings are not just like for movies. Like their endings are a part of life. I mean, like literally everything on earth has an ending. Like, when you like drink the rest of your coffee, like that's the end of that coffee. Like when you get done with a class, like that's the end of the class. Like there's ending in our seasons, there's ending of friendships. Endings aren't always like an easy thing, but endings are part of life. Really, everything on this earth has an ending. And that's true about you, and that's true about me. Our time here on earth has an ending. And I think it makes me think like, okay, well, if time on earth ends, like what comes next? And it makes me think like, if I only have like a limited time and the ending is coming, like what do I do with that rest of the time that I have? And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight. And since we're in this series, At the Movies, we're going to be talking about a movie that I think beautifully explains this. And it's this movie called Clouds. You can catch it on Disney+. If you have not watched it yet, I recommend 10 out of 10. It's a good movie. Makes it a little weepy, but sometimes you need that. And whether you've seen it or you haven't and you just need a refresher or you want to know what we're talking about, I want you to check out this trailer.
Here's the thing, I like you. I know your diagnosis complicates things, but I don't care.
Hey, May.
Do you like me?
Yes, I do.
Even though I don't have cancer?
Make your move, Romeo. Most teenagers feel like they're invincible. Not the Superman kind of invincible. The kind of invincible that tricks you into thinking tomorrow might be a better day to start chasing your dreams.
I'm gonna grow up.
We've been through this, just breathe.
You are my best friend, so you are morally obligated to say nice things to me. Everybody else out there is not my best friend.
If everyone else doesn't like it, then they're idiots. And while there's a lot that I don't know at my age, what I do know is this. We all have limited time.
Tell me something you never told before I walk through the door. I adore you, I adore you.
I do.
How are you?
Off chemo.
Is it because it worked or?
I do.
What you're facing is scary, but you get to decide what matters most now.
Never give up.
Shut the front door. Are you writing a song?
Hello. I was thinking it might be cool if we did something that was just ours.
Fix me up, my darling.
Zach, have you looked on YouTube?
You have 20,000 views?
You should be happy. I thought this is what you wanted.
It doesn't really matter what I want because it's not gonna happen.
It's not fair.
Stop! I have nothing to give you. No ring,
Zach.
no future, nothing.
Zach!
There's so much in there that the world needs to hear. What are you gonna do with it?
This is insane.
Just breathe.
We'll go up, but I'll fly a little higher.
Are you him? No.
Yeah, I'm Zach.
It's my favorite song.
In the end, I just want to make people happy.
I, Zachary Sobiak, am asking you.
Yes!
Please go to.
For as long as I can. Because what some people take for granted, others are fighting for. And believe me, I'm a fighter.
Now, this movie, I'll admit, made me a little weepy. But I have to let you know, I watched this with my roommate, Grace, who's the youth pastor of the Hastings campus, and she was bawling her eyes out. 10 out of 10, would recommend. It's a really good movie. But I think what's so special about this movie is that it's based on a true story. And so I actually want you to meet the main character of this movie. His name is Zach Sobiak. And what's really cool about this movie for us is that this kid, he lived in Stillwater, Minnesota, which is just a couple miles away from our Woodbury campus. And at a young age, he found out that he had an aggressive form of bone cancer. And he goes through years of treatment and then remission, which means he didn't have cancer anymore. And then it comes back and he goes through chemo and radiation. Cancer is a really awful thing to go through. And Zach finds out at kind of in the middle of this movie, and we pick up at the end of his story, that he is terminal with his cancer, meaning that the treatments aren't working anymore and that he's gonna eventually die from this cancer, and eventually came a lot sooner than I think he was expecting. And I think if any of us had received that news, that you were terminally ill and that you only had maybe 6 months to live, I think we would all experience a ton of different kind of emotions. I think frustration and fear. I think you'd be sad. I think there's just a lot of maybe hopelessness in that. And the movie shows Zach go through those emotions, but then it shows us is he has this moment where he decides to take this gift that God has given him, because one of the beautiful parts of Zach's story is Zach knew Jesus. And so he kind of knew what was coming next in his story. And he decides to write this song and kind of leave this legacy thing. And I don't think he fully knew the impact that he would have, because this song that he put out on YouTube to today has 18 million views. He brought hope with this song that he put out in the world. And I think Zach knew something fundamental that I think we all need to understand at some point. And Zach knew that he was going to die. Zach knew that the end of his story here on earth was coming very quickly. He knew that he wasn't guaranteed tomorrow, and I think this movie has made me understand an important lesson, and that's actually my main point that I want you to understand tonight, and it's this point right here. Every story has an ending. Every single story has an ending. That's true about your life, and that's true about my life. And it kind of makes me think like, okay, my life is going to end at some point, and maybe that's going to be sooner than later. And if I knew like, man, I only have limited time, like how would I live that time? Even if I like, okay, I only have 24 hours to live. How am I going to spend that time? And it made me think like, what would you do with that time? So on our Instagram on Monday, we put this question out. If you knew you only had 24 hours to live, what would you do with it? And we got a ton of answers. I want to share some of those with you. The first one, which I get, you just want to have some fun. I get that. I want to have some fun with the last couple hours that I have to live. Some of you want to travel somewhere new. Some of you want to spend the day with Justin Bieber. Okay. Some of you want to take a road trip. Specifically, one of you wants to go ride a horse in a field. If it's like not in a field, you don't want it. But you want a horse in a field. One of you wants to like cook a huge meal for your family. Some of you have like huge hearts and you want to like donate all of your things. That's like really incredible. And I love this last one. You want to tell everyone that you love, thank you. And what's crazy about this concept that we have limited time is the Bible actually talks about it. And there's a verse in the Bible out of the book of James, and it's James 4, verse 14. It says this, "Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time, and then vanishes." What this verse is telling us right here is that we really do have limited time here on earth, and I don't say this to make you scared. I don't say this to like make you feel like you have to do something crazy in the next 24 hours, but I tell you this because it's a biblical truth that we have limited time and none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. But there is something that comes after we die, and it's called eternity. And it's kind of a hard thing to understand, so I have an illustration that I want to show you. I have this rope right here with this like banana on the end. It's not a banana, it's tape. But I need you to understand that this little piece on this long rope, it goes all over. Yep, here we go. Okay, so we have this rope. And this little piece that's taped represents the time that you have here on earth. This represents how much time you have when you're born and then when you die. And then the rest of this rope that goes on and on and on and on is eternity. What you need to understand is what you do here, the decisions that you make here will impact the rest of this rope, the rest of eternity. And what do I mean by that? Well, in eternity, in this part of this rope, there are two places. There's a place called heaven, and there's a place called hell, and they're both very real places. And I want to explain to you what those two places are because the decisions that we make now impact where we go for eternity. And we have this place called heaven, and heaven is beautiful. Like that's where God, the Father, is living and waiting for us. It's a place that's filled with love and mercy and kindness and peace. All of the beautiful, beautiful attributes of God like live there. There's no sin, there's no sadness. And we get to be in that for eternity. But we also have this place that's called hell. And hell is a scary concept. Hell is a place where God is not. So when God is not somewhere, there's no goodness, there's no peace, there's no joy, there's no love, there's no forgiveness. And I don't know exactly what hell looks like, but I do know that it's not where I want to be because I want to be where God is. And to get to these places, all is based on the time and the decision that we make here. And that decision is to either say yes to a relationship with Jesus and to step into the salvation that he's offering to us. That's what secures us eternity with him. And so many of you have made that decision, and maybe you just made that decision last week to say yes to Jesus, to enter him into your life, to have him forgive you of those sins. Maybe you have done that, and maybe you haven't yet, and you're not sure. But my question for you, and I'm going to ask two big questions tonight, and the first one that I have is this right here. Are you ready for eternity? Are you ready for eternity? And by that, have you made that decision to follow Jesus? And I say this again because we don't know. We don't know if tomorrow's coming, and so maybe tonight you need to make that decision. And what's incredible is you don't need this like big moment for that. Maybe in your small group, you can make that decision. Or maybe you can find your youth pastor right after this and make that decision to say yes. But my question is, are you ready? Are you ready for eternity? And John 3:16, which is like an incredible verse that like everyone in the world, like I feel like knows. But I just want to read it because it's like super fundamental for our relationship with God. So it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life." So Jesus came to earth to die on the cross and raise again so that you and I could have a relationship with God and have eternal life with him. So my question is, are you ready for eternity? And maybe you're like, yes, I've said yes to Jesus. Or maybe in a couple minutes you're going to make that decision. You're like, I'm ready for eternity now. But my next question is, are you really ready for eternity? And how do we get ready for eternity? Well, I think we get ready for eternity by living for eternity. Let me explain that because I just like said the definition within like the name of it. Like, let me explain. When we focus on Jesus and showing the love of Jesus and bringing hope to our world, that prepares us for eternity and helps us to prepare the other people around us. And it leads me seamlessly into my next question, because if you're ready for eternity, but eternity's not here yet, my question for you is this. This is my second question. What will you do with the time that you have? Because you've said yes to Jesus and eternity's coming. What do you do in that time? And when I think about this thought, I'm reminded of a clip in the movie. And I'm going to set the scene before we jump into it because it's a pretty quick clip. But Zach, our main character of this movie, has just found out that he's terminal. He found out that the chemo's not working anymore and that he has months, max, to live. And he walks into a classroom where they're prepping for college writing. And he knows that he is not going to go to college. Like, could you imagine the feelings that he's feeling there? He walks into this classroom, and he could have ignored this moment, but because he was listening, everything changes for the rest of the time that he has on earth. And so I want us to check out this clip.
All right, everybody, put those phones down and let me holler at y'all real quick. Today is the day we craft your college essays. Yay! Question number one, what do you have to offer? And not even just to the university, to the world. What do you want to do with your one, wow, and precious life?
The quote that he says at the end of that changes Zach's life. And I want to read that quote to you right now, and it's from Mary Oliver. It says, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" See, Zach hears this, and that's what inspires him to like write this song and leave this legacy of hope. Zach decides with the rest of the time that he has, he's gonna grab life and bring hope into a world that needs it. And remember, like Zach knew Jesus. And so he wanted everyone to have this hope that he had. And I don't know that he fully knew the impact that he had. And when I think about Zach's story, I think about a friend of mine. Actually, I think about two friends of mine. This is a picture of them. This is Claire, and that's Andrew. We went to middle school and high school together. They were a grade older than me. And I need you to like understand their relationship for a second. So they're best friends. But their friendship started out with actually Claire bullying Andrew. I don't recommend that's like the way to start friendships, but for them, it like God redeemed it. So like don't bully people. Just like be friends with them. You can actually just start there. And so Claire was like a bully to Andrew. And then eventually Claire found Jesus. And when she found Jesus, everything changed. Like she was kinder to people. She was loving to people. But she also understood the things that she did wrong. And she tried to mend that relationship with Andrew, and it took a long time. Like, she had to apologize and ask for forgiveness because she was a bully. That hurts. But somehow, by God allowing it, Andrew gave Claire forgiveness and their friendship grew. And then Claire decided, okay, now that we're friends, I'm going to start inviting him to church. And she asked him not just once, not just twice, but several, on top of several times. She invited him to church, and he started off by saying no. And then he was a little bit more interested, and then eventually he just broke down, and he's like, yes, I'll go to church with you. So she brought him to youth group. And he goes to youth group, and that night the youth pastor was talking about faith. And he gives his message, and he has this response time, and he had everybody close their eyes and hold their hands out. And he asked them, how much faith do you have in God? And he said on a scale of 1 to 10, and he wanted them to put up their hands and show how much faith they had in God. And Claire, who was very newly saved, was like, yes, 10 out of 10, I will die for God. I have so much faith in him. And then Andrew was sitting right next to her, and he was only able to hold up 3. And hardly that. Because what you need to know about Andrew is when Andrew was 2 years old, he was diagnosed with cancer and went through chemo and radiation as a really young kid. And it was a very traumatic event. And then he went through remission and didn't have cancer for a really long time. So he had he had a bad relationship with God because of his experience. But he kept coming to youth group, and he felt his faith start to grow even more, and he stepped into that relationship with Jesus. He said yes. And in 8th grade, he found out that his cancer was back. And it was an aggressive form of cancer. And so he started chemo again, he started radiation again, and it was really difficult. It is hard on your body, and to be in 8th grade, it's a lot to take on. And so he progresses with his cancer treatments. And he ended up getting to about 10th grade, and he was in love with Jesus, on fire for God. And then he gets the call that his cancer is now terminal, meaning the treatments aren't working anymore, and that he's going to die from this. He found out he had 6 months max, very similar to Zach's story. And now, what happens a lot of the time when you're a kid and you are terminally ill, you have this foundation called Make-A-Wish that will reach out to you. And what it is, essentially, it makes one last wish for kids that are going to die from a disease. And for Andrew, he was provided $5,000 to do whatever he wanted. And a lot of kids will go meet their favorite sports hero or actor, or they'll go do something really, really incredible. But Andrew decided to give all $5,000 to an organization called Speed the Light. And Speed the Light is an organization that sends out missionaries and evangelists, sends out speakers, it builds churches. Andrew decided to spend his last wish so that people would know Jesus. He decided to bring hope when his hope of his time on earth was gone. And what's incredible about Andrew's story is this happened 12 years ago, and he ended up dying about 4 months after he got his terminal diagnosis. And to this day, 12 years later, we're able to still talk about the impact that he had. And I don't know what those missionaries went to do, but I know that Andrew made an impact in our world. And Claire was telling me, I talked to her on the phone the other day, she said, the last time that I saw Andrew was about a week before he died. And he said, hey, Claire, do you remember that time you brought me to youth group, that first time? And she's like, yeah, I remember. And he goes, do you remember what the youth pastor, he asked us that night? He asked us where our faith was at. And Andrew's it was really hard for me to even hold up 3 fingers to say, I trust God, 3 out of 10. And he said, but because you invited me to church, because you walked with me through these hard situations, and because God showed up, I can say 10 out of 10, I have faith in him. And this story is so beautiful because it talks about Claire stepping out of her way to invite her friends to church. And this is something we're going to hit on next week. You don't want to miss it. But what we see in Andrew's story is he decided to do something incredible with the time that he had left. So it leads me to my question again. What will you do with the time that you have? What will you do with the time that you have? Andrew and Zach had to find out that they were dying to really start leaving an impact on our world. But the beautiful thing about here tonight is that you don't need to find that you're terminally ill to start making an impact in our world. And Zach actually has a really beautiful quote that I want to share with you tonight. And it's this: you don't have to find out that you're dying to start living. And that's my challenge to you, is you don't have to find out that you're dying to start showing the love of God. Because the truth is we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We don't know what's next. But you can start making an impact to show the love of Christ to the people around you, because eternity is coming. And you need to think, are my friends ready? Are my parents ready? Am I ready? And in a moment, our worship teams are going to get up and sing the song Clouds that Zach wrote, that what he went viral for, and that brought a lot of hope. And the song is all about finding hope in the midst of trial and tragedy. And I think this is a really good song for us to listen to and to process. And those of you watching online, you'll get to see this video after as well. And while this song is playing, I want you to think for a moment. I want you to think on that same quote that changed Zach's life, and it's this quote right here. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And on those papers that we've given you, I want you to write that out as you're listening to this. But before we do that, I would love to pray for you. So Jesus, I thank you for this opportunity to have the reminder that like eternity is a real thing. Heaven and hell are real places, and we don't know if we have tomorrow. And God, right now, I just pause and pray for those people that are feeling maybe anxious or scared, that don't know what to do with these feelings because maybe they've learned this for the first time. God, I pray that you give them peace in this moment, and that your truth would speak, that when we say yes to you, like we have eternity with you. And God, as we're preparing ourselves to think about eternity, I pray that we remember that there's still so much that we can do with the time that we have left. So God, as these students are prepping for this processing time, would you help this to be fruitful and helpful? And as they talk about this in small group, would you make this a breakthrough night for all of us that are hearing this? Jesus, we love you and we thank you. We pray this in your name. Amen.
I fell down, down, down to this dark and lonely hole. There was no one there to care about me anymore, and I needed a way to climb and grab a hold of the edge. You were sitting there, holding a rope, and we'll go up, 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 but I'll fly a little higher. Go up in the clouds because the view's a little nicer up here, my dear. It won't be long now, it won't be long now. When we get back on land, well, I'll never get my chance. Be ready to live, and it'll be ripped right out my hands. And maybe someday we'll take a little ride. Go up, 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 and everything will be just fine. Fly a little higher, go up in the clouds because the view's a little nicer up here, my dear. It won't be long now, it won't be long now. If only I had a little bit more time. If only I had a little bit more time. answer up here.